recorded in the Western Hemisphere, swine flu is spreading across the world, with a total number of confirmed cases now over 100,000. While the vaccine remains to be seen, some experts are claiming the virus is man-made. Nicole Cordell, a legal analyst, joins us now from the U.S. Capitol. Hello, Nicole. Thanks for joining us. Now, first of all, could we see compulsory vaccination being introduced in the U.S. in some near future?
Well, it's something that's been in the works for a little while. We've had several statutes passed at the federal level since 2004 setting in measures that will allow for a mandatory requirements for vaccinations. There's something called the Project BioShield Act of 2004 that will help to expedite FDA requirements for passing tests for vaccinations. There's the Public Readiness and Emergency Act and Preparedness Act of 2006. That's something that the Department of Health and Human Services Secretary will be able to declare national pandemics. There's a couple more as well. And also, I believe that Massachusetts just passed state law for this as well.
Nicole, as we know, there is no swine flu vaccine yet. Do you have an explanation for that? And do you think the pharmaceutical companies probably are or will be trying to make a buck out of people's fears?
Well, it's something that you alluded to a little bit earlier. It's not certain what the origin of this particular strain of H1N1 is. And it appears that there's, I guess, a combination of human, bird, and swine flu strains molded together to one. I jokingly think maybe it should be called the Sphinx flu or something to that effect, and perhaps equally mysterious in origin and maybe like the Sphinx, man-made. Certainly, with all the legislation that I just alluded to, there are a few more acts as well. That lays opportunity down for companies to maybe see a place to make a buck. There's another great release for these companies in a couple of other acts that limit damages for companies in case there are any problems attendant from the vaccinations. So it's sort of an all-win game for pharmaceutical companies. They can make probably high profits because I'm assuming when there's orders issued that we're a pandemic, we're an emergency, state of emergency, and we must issue out mandatory vaccines, that it'll be very lucrative contracts that these pharmaceutical companies will get, and they also don't have to worry about liability for any problems in case there are any faults with the vaccines.
No, as you've just mentioned, it could be a game for many pharmaceutical companies. Now, what can the government do to prevent anyone from exploiting the situation?
Quite fairly, I'd like our representatives in Congress, in both houses of Congress, to be a little bit more responsible. I think it's a lot of the measures that they've passed over the past few years that are opening up this opportunity for possible exploitation and manipulation by the pharma companies. I'd like them, for a change, perhaps to read carefully the legislation that they enact and be a little bit more proactive. A lot of authority has been delegated down to administrative bodies like to the Secretary of Health and Human Services and such. So you can have sort of a chain of events in action and, like a statement being issued by the World Health Organization influencing the Secretary of Health and Human Services response to her, right now her, initiating a mandate. We've set a lot in place. If Congress were a little bit more responsible in the legislation that they've passed, and perhaps they should make some amendments to the current legislation to prevent this.
Well, let's hope it will actually be responsible. That was Nicole Cordell, a legal analyst from Washington, D.C. Thank you, Nicole.